Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom or Tom. How's it going?
Well, Tony, it is time for the next episode in our series that makes people extremely mad, and I just want to be clear on this. Tony's the one who puts the titles on these and gets everyone in the comments upset. That is not me. That's all Tony. I'm always happy to give him the credit when it's deserved, and this is definitely one of those cases.
This is one of those cases. And again, we're talking about this is in reference to the linebacker show, and I think I titled it something like Major Concerns. And I won't call them major concerns on the offensive line. I'll just call them happy concerns. No concerns. Again, these are the three concerns for every position. Just because I said major, like you're telling me if these problems actually come to fruition that they're not major. So, respectfully, Tom, I've got three major concerns on the offensive line. No,
The best
this is
part
gonna be the
is
show.
the
Go
best
ahead.
part about this is that now you're going to backpedal on how big the concerns are, and then the offensive line is the show where a decent chunk of the fan base does have major concerns and is probably more concern, views these as bigger concerns than we probably do. So this is one where now you're going to go too far the other way,
I
and then
know.
people are going to say you're not concerned enough. You're underselling this rather than overselling this.
Yeah, these concerns or are they positives? No. My first concern, Tom, that I have here, and I was writing them down, and I wrote this one down second, and I'm like, no, actually, I think that's the biggest concern. And I don't, like I said, I don't know that's going to come to fruition. But number one, what if Ian Moore isn't very good? Now, we're putting a lot of eggs in the Ian Moore basket. We assume he's going to be the left tackle or the right tackle, and that's going to solve one of those issues. We saw him play a little bit in 2025. We liked what we saw. Things seem fine. But what if he is, he has his ups and downs? He's going to be a first time starter. There will be some ups and downs. But what if the downs are at the wrong time? What if against against the best defensive ends, that's when he's going to play his worst, like most offensive tackles. So I think there is a concern here. I think he's going to be fine, but what if it turns out Ian Moore isn't as good as the staff hoped?
And I think this is a legitimate concern because until you see it, you don't know. I think we both have expectations that he's going to be totally fine and probably do a pretty solid job. But until you see it on the field, you don't know. And so I think that's a concern. And I think you can sort of file what if one of the tackles gets hurt in this same basket? That's always a possibility. And I think the answer is they have two tackles returning from last year, and Ian Moore gives them a third tackle. So if Ian Moore doesn't play to the level that I think that we're expecting from him, or if someone gets hurt or whatever, you can run it back with the guys who played tackle for you last year, and you have Austin Sareveld play left tackle and Philip Daniels play right tackle, and those guys were pretty solid for most of the year and were I think with another year of experience will probably be improved again this year. So I do think there is some uncertainty around Ian Moore, and I think there's some uncertainty about how much better would those guys be. So I do think this is a valid concern, but it feels like there's kind of a built-in answer there where if the guy who you haven't seen do it can't do it for whatever reason, you have two guys who you have seen do it and have seen do reasonably well. It wasn't perfect by any means, but it
Mhm.
should be at least that good, if not better, in 2026 if it comes to that.
And that's exactly the point that you made there is what I wanted to bring up as well. Because, well, if he's not great, you still have your returning starters there. And that's one of the reasons that I think we keep going back on this offensive line saying, we hear all of the panic, but I don't know that it's warranted because of the amount of experience. And the crazy thing about experience, the more you get, the better you should get as well. So I think that's why there's an answer to this major concern. The biggest concern in the world. The next one, can they find a right guard? Because right now that is the question on the offensive line. Who's going to play right guard? Ryan Day on his radio show mentioned Josh Padilla, Gabe Van Sickle, Philip Daniels as being the three options right now. Also mentioned Jake Cook as another guy that is, stepping up and had a very good freshman season kind of out of the blue. So you've got a number of guys there, but just because you have options doesn't mean you have the answer. Now, I think Gabe Van Sickle in his limited time maybe got a little exposed early on as a redshirt freshman. That happens. Josh Padilla, if he hadn't gotten hurt, maybe takes over that position over from Tegra Cibola. We don't know that for sure. Wasn't always perfect when he played. The year before, Austin Searveld and Tegra Cibola, they both had their issues. So this has been a quest for the Ohio State offensive line coach. What if it continues? What if it continues to be a rotating, not mess, but a lack of one good answer? Because we've said it during the season, if you're playing two guys at a position, that's because you don't have one solid answer generally.
Yeah, and this is another one that I see as a valid concern. I view this as a spot where they have enough potential answers, and they have enough potential answers that we've seen enough from that. Josh Padilla. What we saw, Josh Padilla was in the mix to be an answer this past season, and then got hurt. And you really would love to have seen Josh Padilla be healthy all season, because I think there's a real possibility he just wins that job. But it's a possibility. We don't know for sure. Gabe Van Sickle, as you said, really in that Cotton Bowl game, it was kind of, everyone who went, well, it must, why are they still playing Tegra Cibola? It can't get any worse than this. And it was like, well, okay. We all learned a valuable lesson. It can get worse than that. Okay, we get it. But he was a redshirt freshman. A redshirt freshman is, and he was not, this was not Paris Johnson coming in as a five-star prospect and, oh, wow, look, he can play right guard in his second year. That's incredible. Gabe Van Sickle didn't have the five-star, super mega hyped, athletic, toolsy, dancing bear stuff that Paris Johnson did. Gabe Van Sickle came in as a, really solid. I think he was a four-star prospect coming out of Michigan, and was a really solid player. But generally, when you see a guy in his second year playing who is not the super mega hyped guy, there are going to be ups and downs. And there were certainly some ups and downs with Gabe Van Sickle. He's someone who I would expect to take a significant step this year. Is that enough to make him the guy who wins job? I don't know, but it's another potential solution. And Philip Daniels, you saw Philip Daniels hold up reasonably well at right tackle. And I think a lot of the criticisms about Daniels in the past season was, I'm not sure he's really a tackle. They might need to kick him inside the guard. Well, okay. So if you're kicking him inside the guard, that feels like that's another solution. Now, if Philip Daniels is the answer at right guard, he can't also be the answer at right tackle in the first concern. So that's a little bit of, that's something to sort of monitor. But my overall thoughts on the offensive line are, you've got everyone you've got back, you kind of know sort of what you're getting there. And I think it's reasonable to assume there's going to be growth over the next year. And I can't tell you what the answer is, but I feel pretty confident that just like the tackle question, the right guard question, there is an answer on the roster somewhere, and quite possibly more than one answer on the roster. And I can't tell you for sure who it's going to be, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be an answer on that roster.
That's how I feel as well. And you mentioned, Gabe Van Sickle not coming in with all of the five-star accolades. For me, once a guy is playing an offensive lineman, if he's playing in year two, I don't, the recruiting rankings don't mean anything to me, because playing that early means more. Very Austin Searveld like, who was in 2024 was in the lineup and playing. And so, why wouldn't you make the next step? Now, I'm not expecting Gabe Van Sickle to make the jump that Austin Searveld made, from 24 to 25, but we've seen it happen. So I do think there are options there at right guard, especially if one of them is Philip Daniels, who now has 18 career starts under his belt. Now they're all at right tackle, but
and if Gabe Van Sickle gets the Iron Buckeye Award twice this season, this year after winter workouts and over the summer, then great. Then I will entertain the Austin Searveld kind of jump kind of conversation. And the one name that you mentioned that I didn't mention was Jake Cook, and I think Jake Cook is sort of in the position that Gabe Van Sickle was a year ago, where and really Gabe Van Sickle wasn't even there a year ago, where I don't think they were really talking about
Mhm.
him this time last year. Jake Cook came in as a true freshman last year and a very, very unheralded player. He's someone who really, really worked hard in high school to really remake his body. He looks like a totally different person than he did when he was in 10th grade. Just the fact that he's in this conversation right now is indicative to me of that's a future starter, maybe not a 2026 starter, but just the way we saw him, already jump into a little bit of a role last year as a true freshman. And now to be in that mix at right guard at this point, I would guess that a second year player who, again, doesn't have that, sort of Paris Johnson sort of athletic background, that's probably wouldn't be ideal to have him be the starter there. But that should give you a little bit of encouragement about what the 2027 offensive line could look like when some of these guys are potentially off to the NFL.
The third concern I have here is one that basically just showed up at the end of the year. What if they're just not good enough against the best defensive lines that they face? And I think the thing is, that's a year-to-year thing, because not every year are you going to run up against Ruben Bain and already slipped my mind, the other guy there,
Hakeem
or
Mesidor.
yeah, Kim Mesidor. Like, you're not going to run into those guys every year. Some years you may run into a better matchup, and so I think sure that's always going to be a concern that you're going to run up. The further you go, the better teams you're going to face. I would argue that over the years, Ohio State has won national championships without great offensive lines, and other programs have as well. Georgia has won national championships without great offensive lines. Alabama has as well. So I don't think you need the best offensive line to win it. I think you need the most advantageous matchups, and then to make the plays that are there to be made, get a couple of bounces. So yeah, the reason I think everybody is throughout all of our videos when we're talking about the portal and everybody's talking about the offensive line, it's because of Indiana and it's because of Miami. And I think you can prepare all you want for that. Just sometimes you get bested.
Yeah, and guess what? Indiana and Miami made a lot of teams look real bad on the offensive line this season, and that's why Ohio State lost to two teams this year, and they were literally the two teams that played for the national championship, and they were two close competitive games late in the game. Those are both games that Ohio State could have won. And yeah, Miami made Ohio State's offensive line look really bad. Sure did. 100%, no disagreement here. You know who else's offensive line Miami made look really bad? The Indiana Hoosiers, the national champions. I mean, that is, go back to the shows before the college football playoff, even before, it might have even been before the field got announced, but we talked about
Mm-hmm.
the ranking the teams in terms of the order of difficulty, and Miami was way higher. They were the 10th seed in the playoff. They were way higher than that, specifically because they had the defensive line that could really create problems for Ohio State. This is now an Ohio State offensive line that's going to be a year older, going to be a year more experienced. Four of the five starters are going to be back, and you've got everyone we're talking about has all played together last year. They should take at least a little bit of a step forward. Now, does that, whatever grade you want to give the Ohio State offensive line last year, they go from a B minus to a B or a B plus. They go from a B to a B plus or an A minus, whatever it is. I don't think this is going to be an A plus Ohio State offensive line this year, but I don't think it needs to be. The defense is going to take a little bit of a step back. The quarterback play, you would assume, is going to take a little bit of a step forward. The running game should take a step forward with the new offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith, and Bo Jackson and Isaiah West being back as veteran guys now and not just true freshmen. And you've got Jeremiah Smith back for his third year. And, there's a lot of reasons to think there are going to be areas where the Ohio State offense is going to be better this year. And the offensive line is going to be better this year, almost certainly. We'll see what the final form of this offensive line is and who the best five is that they sort of settle on. But this is not, You can win a national championship without an offensive line that just completely ruins your opponent in every game. Lots of teams have done that. Ohio State has done that, and this is another year where I don't know how many offensive lines in the nation are really going to be A++ offensive lines.
Mm-hmm.
There just aren't that many of them, and Ohio State is going to be about as veteran and about as heavy in returning starters. They're going to have a lot of what Miami had this past year, where they have returning starters, experienced veteran guys. That it isn't a guarantee of anything, but it certainly positions you to have a pretty good line and a pretty good season.
It's going to be fascinating to see what they do because they're replacing one starter. But in a perfect world, if you ask Ohio State fans what they want with this current lineup, you'd probably say 3 new starters, where it's like you have Ian Moore at left tackle, new starter. You have Austin Sierveld at right tackle, new starter. Phillip Daniels at right guard, or whoever, somebody's going to be a new starter there. So you've got this offensive line that's played together for a while now. You put them in maybe more ideal positions, and they should still have that continuity, you would hope. So there you go. 3 on a scale of 1 to 10, somewhere between 1 and 10 concerns. In terms of scale of hot to cold, hot to cold. I don't want to get into temperatures. I'm not trying to make anybody angry here, but 3-ish concerns. No, the number 3 is accurate. How concerning they are, that's up to you to decide. So there you go. If you have not already left an angry comment, please do so. Thumbs up was always appreciated as well. You can continue to find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com talking about this and many other things as well. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.